Welcome everyone to Wedgwood on this beautiful fall morning and our day of remembrance. We are glad that you are here with us. If you are here with us at 11 o'clock live, or if you are listening later in the day and later in the week, welcome to Wedgwood. We are glad that you chose to join us today. And we will begin with our prelude, When the Saints Go Marching In. And now we will go to our extravagant welcome, Raquel and Mariah.
We are all welcome here.
Welcome to a church that works for peace, justice, equality, and the care of Mother Earth.
An extravagant welcome to you because of your gender identification, sexual orientation, ethnicity, economic situation, physical and mental challenges, doubting or believing, being depressed or full of joy.
We are a community of curious and creative spiritual seekers, striving to learn and embody the way of Jesus and other spiritual leaders.
Like Jesus, we focus on the plundered and the marginalized as we try to address the major issues of our day.
One of the ways we seek to heal the world and ourselves is through sharing parts of our personal story.
We are all welcome here.
We are all welcome here. Yes, we are. And welcome everyone to Wedgwood Church. And now we go to our moment for all ages. So if you've got any children around and want to gather them, that's great. Bring them in. Today, we're just going to talk a little bit about honoring family members and friends and people that we sometimes forget about. You know, all religions teach us to honor our grandparents, our parents, and the elderly people in our families. And today I want to talk a little bit about that to the children. I want you to think today of perhaps someone. I want you to think about people with gray hair like me, the gray-haired people in your family, the gray-haired lady next door. Think about them for just a minute. You know, your smile and your hello to them would brighten their day. So I want you to think about that for just a minute and see if you can bring somebody to mind. And adults, the same way, somebody next door that lives alone. Somebody in your family that you've been saying, I need to call, and putting it off. Think about those people. Think about those people. Life is precious, and we need to stay in touch with those people. And for the children, when you think about somebody and you come up with somebody with that gray hair, I want to challenge you. Can you see my picture that I drew of the flowers? I want you today to find a sheet of paper, and I want you to draw some flowers on the paper. Whatever color, whatever kind of flowers. I tried to put mine in a basket. However you want to decorate it would be great. And I want you, if you can, to give that to someone in your life that maybe you think, I haven't told them I love them lately. I haven't paid them much attention lately, or maybe I didn't listen yesterday when Mama or Daddy told me to do something, and maybe they're not gray haired, but that's okay. Maybe there's a lady next door that you know, or down the street that is an older lady or gentleman that lives alone. Maybe mom or dad will let you take this to their door and hand it to them and say, I was just thinking about you today and I wanted to bring you some flowers. That will brighten their day. So today, as we have Remembrance Day, let's all think about those people that are still with us, that maybe we need to do a little bit more remembering of. Thank you. And we come now to our celebrations and concerns. This is a time at Wedgwood when we use it as prayer time, meditation time, self-reflection time, however your beliefs tell you to use this time, because we have a lot of different beliefs at Wedgwood. You can use it in prayer, you can use it to self-reflect or meditate, however you choose. But we want to share those joys and concerns that we have. And of course, Donna is with us this morning. Donna Carter. We always lift Donna Carter up. She is dealing with some serious health issues. So Donna, we always think about you. We want to remember Thomas's daughter, Sarah. She had pneumonia, but Thomas says she is doing much better now, but we need to still continue to pray for complete recovery. Ashanti's daughter, Naj, you know, that's always a struggle. She has MS, and now her daughter, Ashanti's granddaughter, has COVID. And I think she's doing much better from talking to Ashanti yesterday, but still needs to be lifted up. Laura Bazan asked me this morning, you know, she's been struggling with some home issues, and her daughter and her husband have been struggling with some issues. And she is not here this morning because of good news. They have found a house, and they are going to look at the house this morning. And we want to lift them up, that things work out for them to get a house, because they've had to move in with Laura and Jim, and with a baby that has some health issues and another child. It's been a lot. So we just want to pray that they are able to find a house. And so this morning they are looking at a house. We always want to think about those who struggle with mental health issues, those who suffer alone, or the concerns that perhaps people have this morning and haven't expressed. We know that they're there. I see here that Liz has said she wants to thank everyone at Wedgwood who reached out to her and sent their love after the death of her grandmother. So we want to continue to remember Liz in the loss of her grandmother and her family as they deal with this great loss. And if anyone else has any prayer requests, just type them into the chat box. We have some celebrations. Yesterday, I was able to pick up 300 pounds of potatoes for the Wedgwood Food Pantry. They're all in the back of my car. So it's at least 300, and it may be more. Cher Charlotte had an opportunity for us to get potatoes. So we have 300 pounds of fresh potatoes right here before Thanksgiving. So I'm really tickled about that. And Mariah was complaining all week about turning 30. And I just didn't know what to say to somebody that complains about turning 30. But Mariah, we celebrate with you on turning 30. Congratulations, although we've all been there a long time ago.
Thank you.
I hope you had a happy birthday. And I believe that's all that we have on our request this week. Ashanti is not here today, but she's okay. She's just taking a much needed break. But we will now have a moment of silence, prayer, self-reflection, however you want to use it. Amen. And now we come to our time of All Souls remembrance. And our wisdom reading for today is A Life Well Lived. A life well lived is a precious gift of hope and strength and grace from someone who has made our world a brighter, better place. It's filled with moments sweet and sad, with smiles and sometimes tears, with friendships formed and good times shared and laughter through the years. A life well lived is a legacy of joy and pride and pleasure, a living, lasting memory our grateful hearts forever treasure. And now we have some folks of Wedgwood that have passed away during the past. And this is All Saints Remembrance Day. First is our dear, dear friend, Bill Van Fleet. Bill was a psychiatrist for many years here in Charlotte. He got very deep into philosophy, and he started the group we had at Wedgwood called the Humanity Group, which was a term that he created. For the way we should live our lives as humans. And you can Google that and you can find it with just a simple Google of his name. So we miss Bill. He passed away this past February. And the second Wedgwood member that we lost this year is Kim Ledbetter, who passed away in February. She was a native of the Marion, Morganton area and moved to Charlotte for a while and moved back there and was the financial director for the McDowell Community College. She passed away in March of this year. And these are Liz's maternal grandparents, Paul and Renata Smith. Anything you want to say, Liz?
Yes, thank you. So Paul, my grandfather, he passed away in the 90s, but my grandmother Renata is the one who passed away about 2 weeks ago. And they're both very special to me, and I'm just really happy that we get to remember them this way today, because they were very, very special.
Is that photo of them in Rome?
No, it's actually Verona. So my grandmother and my mother are both from Verona, Italy, and Verona has a Colosseum as well. That's actually like still in use. And that was from their wedding day.
And Liz's paternal grandparents, Harry and Dorothy Schwab.
Yeah, these are my Shobe grandparents, my dad's parents, and they passed away about 10 years ago. And I really lucked out in the grandparent department on all fronts. They were all just wonderful people.
And this is Nancy Leddens, member of Wedgwood Church. She was the first transgender priest in the Catholic Church, and which would actually make her the first and only woman priest. She died in July the 18th of 2017. But she was a very, very important part of Wedgwood Church. Our beautiful gardens are the Nancy Leddens gardens because she had such an impact on all of us. Chris, you knew her well. Is there anything else you would like to say?
You know, she is the most courageous person that I've ever met. And she brought a lot of joy to everybody in the congregation.
Yes.
Great sense of humor.
Yes, and went through a lot of struggles. And then we have Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton. Donna Bill sent his picture to us. He was an American Trappist monk, writer, theologian, mystic, poet, social activist, and scholar of comparative religion. Lived from 1915 to 1968, but has had a profound impact on Donna's life. Donna, would you like to say anything?
Yes, from Seeds of Contemplation, one of his books, he wrote, "To say that I am made in the image of God is to say that love is the reason for my existence. For God is love. Love is my true identity."
Thank you. Now, are there other people that you want to call the names of this morning that we want to remember? Anyone?
Rosalie Johnson, my mother, who passed 2019 at the young age of 97. And she truly was a positive lady, taught school in a 2-room schoolhouse, just a phenomenon. In fact, yesterday I was just talking about her over to Ann Wood's home, that I walk around this house and I still have conversations with that lady.
Anyone
James,
else?
James and Jean Willis, my brother Michael, my brother Chris.
My mother, Nikki, and my son, Michael, who both died in 2016.
Any others? All right, we also want to remember the 18,000 people in North Carolina who have passed away of COVID during the past year and a half, and almost 800,000 people in the United States that we have lost to this virus. I would like for us also to remember all of the trans and gender non-conforming Americans whose lives have been lost senselessly. And this year we are on a record pace for even more than have been lost in years past. I want us to remember the missing and murdered Indigenous women, missing and murdered women of color that often no one goes to look for. We want to remember them. So now we'll have a few moments of silence, a few moments of remembrance. All right, thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a friend, Brandon Lofton. Brandon was raised by a school teacher and a Marine who instilled in him a sense of community service at a very early age. Brandon is a partner in the law firm Robinson Bradshaw, and is husband to Kelly, who's on with us this morning, and father of 2 boys, Caleb and Brandon II. Brandon Lofton is the North Carolina State House Representative for District 104, and he will share with us some of his personal stories this morning, those who made us.
Thank you very much, Melba, and thank you everyone for having me this morning. Before we get started, I just want to, of course, express appreciation for the ability to speak with you today on this day of remembrance of All Saints Day. In my household, actually, since All Saints Day is technically on November 1st, it's actually the most important thing about All Saints Day is that it's Kelly's birthday. So if you can join me in just, giving a Zoom clap for Kelly for her birthday and wishing her a happy birthday today.
And thank you for spending part of your birthday with us.
So I want to begin by reading a little bit from Joshua chapter 4. And of course, as we know, in Joshua chapter 4, the Israelites had just crossed over the River Jordan, and God gave instructions to Joshua to give to the Israelites to set up memorials so they could remember what's been done for them. And I'm going to read a few of the verses from there. And it says, take you up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in the time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? Ye shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and these stones shall be a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. I'd like to talk with you today, as Melba mentioned, about the topic of those who made us, those who made us. Again, it's an honor to speak with you on All Saints Day and to participate in this tradition of remembrance with you. But I have to admit, when I read the cover email that Melba sent out with the order of service, something stood out to me. It explained the significance of All Saints Day. It invited everyone to share photos and names of loved ones whom we've lost, but it also invited us to join in, quote, naming our abiding connection to them, naming our abiding connection to them. This struck me. The word abiding means lasting, continuing, and enduring. The word connection signifies a relationship or a link. How can I have a continuing, enduring relationship with people who are no longer with me? How can there be a lasting link between me and someone from whom I am separated, someone who is absent? When I was in middle school, around my son Caleb's age, actually around 12, 13 years old, I told my mother that I wanted to be a lawyer when I grew up. Her reaction, frankly, surprised me. She sat silently for a bit, staring at me and searching my face for the answer to some question I wasn't even aware I'd even asked. After a while, she just stared at me and she asked, why? Why do you want to be a lawyer? I told her, I don't know. I like to argue and debate. I like to question everything. That's true, she said. I told her, it just feels right. She looked at me and said, your father is a lawyer. His father, your grandfather, is a lawyer. I guess it's just in you. I guess it's just in you. My mother saw in that moment what I would have to grow over time to accept. Even in the face of separation, even though I knew nothing about them, even in their very absence from my life, my father and grandfather were still a part of me. I think about this lesson when I think about the abiding connection that we have to all of our loved ones, even when we are no longer able to see them, even when we can no longer talk with them or hear their voices, even when we may feel physically the very absence from us. They, in fact, remain a part of us. There is an abiding connection with those who made us. We must take care to remember this fact, but beyond just remembering it, we must take care to, as Melba advised us or invited us to do in the email, to name it. I like the verb name because it shows intention. It shows specificity. It's more than just sitting in our general feelings. When we name something, we specifically identify it. We help convey its meaning or context. We give it a designation by which it can be known or understood, both by ourselves and by others. You know, when Kelly and I had our first child, the burden of finding the right name for him nearly broke us. In fact, the nurse actually had to threaten us that they would not be able to let us leave the hospital until we finally settled on a name for our newborn son. We wavered between different options and agonized under the pressure, fully aware of the weight of our decision, the weight and the burden of naming a human being. In the end, of course, it all seems overly dramatic considering that we just ended up calling him Brandon anyway. But when our second son was born, we were more prepared. We knew we wanted to name him Caleb from the Bible. We wanted to convey meaning over his life of faith and courage. Going back to Joshua in chapter 4, when the Israelites set up the 12 stones, it was a way of naming their faith. It was a way of specifically identifying what God had done for them. They were setting up a memorial for the children of Israel forever. Remembering what God had done for them and for their ancestors was an important part to not just understanding their connection to their forefathers, but understanding who they were, their birthright, their legacy. The closest I've ever come to this kind of experience is when I attended a family reunion in Northumberland County, Virginia, where my family had been enslaved. At the time of the reunion, I was a young lawyer in my late 20s. I made the nearly 8-hour drive from Charlotte to Northumberland County, which is in what's called the northern neck of Virginia, where the Potomac flows into Chesapeake Bay. I passed over long stretches of roads and open fields until at last I reached the site of the reunion, a single-story school building in what seemed to me to be an otherwise unimproved field. Being in my late 20s, a part of me wondered if it would not have been better had the reunion been held in some place with more to do. However, these questions quickly disappeared when I learned the significance of where we were. The first thing my family did after emancipation was build a church. The second thing they did was build a school. The ground on which I now found myself standing was the site of that very school. My grandmother's grandparents, William Lewis and Sarah Harcum Lewis, were in their 20s at the time of emancipation. So here I was, if you can picture it, a young lawyer returning to the land where my family, where my ancestors had been enslaved, and where after emancipation, they built a life for themselves. Here I was together with a room full of William and Sarah's descendants, face to face with my family's own memorial stones. I spent a fair amount of time recently searching historical records in order to uncover more about these stones and better understand my family's experience. I've had some success and some challenges. There are certain difficulties inherent in researching Black family history. For example, while I was able to find family members in the 1870 census listed as adults, I could not find these same adults in the 1860 census. I've since learned that slaves were not usually found in pre-emancipation census counts because we were not considered people. We were considered property. So I searched the property records for families with the surnames of Harcum and Lewis in the 1860s, Northumberland County. I couldn't find specific names of the slaves listed, but I did find slaves listed by sex and age on the same lines as other property, like land and horses. I also learned about my family's life after the Civil War. Virginia, in fact, had some of the nation's worst Black codes. These laws specifically targeted Black people living in Virginia. They included imposing poll taxes and literacy tests on Black people, forcing children into unpaid labor, euphemistically called apprenticeships, and even banning Black people from owning firearms at a time when Klan and racial violence were rampant. Understanding my family's experience and challenges they faced, learning about their commitment to faith and education in the face of these challenges gives me strength. For all of us, naming our abiding connection to those who made us can be a way of reminding us who we are. It can be a source of strength and encouragement. But ultimately, of course, it's about more than us as individuals. It's about more than finding your personal comfort and encouragement. When the children of Israel crossed the Jordan River, God did not instruct them to engage in personal, quiet reflection. He instructed each of them to gather a stone and build a memorial for all to see, so that all, including future generations, could join in remembering. To me, this is what's truly powerful about All Saints' Day. It's more than our personal reflections and comfort. It's all of us coming together and together naming our connections to those who made us. One of the most personally touching moments of that family reunion back in Northumberland County was when they called the roll. They did so by calling the names of each of the children of my grandmother's generation. When each of her siblings' name was called, their descendants stood in that person's honor while the rest of us clapped for them and welcomed them. My grandmother was the youngest of the 10. She died when I was young, but I still missed her presence even then. When it finally came time for her name to be called, the MC paused. Instead of simply reading her name, he smiled and said, "And now the baby of the family, baby Bess." To warm applause, my mom, my sisters, aunts, cousins, and I proudly stood in my grandmother's honor. That small moment of tenderness, that small public recognition, the act of publicly seeing my grandmother's humanity meant the world to me. You know, the last time I spoke at Wedgwood, it was on Father's Day. At that time, the country and the world were in the midst of protesting the killing of George Floyd. Millions of people around the globe of all races, ethnicities, and nationalities were engaged in the public act of recognizing George Floyd's humanity, and more broadly, the humanity of all African Americans. Companies were pledging to do their part to address inequities. Friends and colleagues were reaching out and making public statements on social media about the need for change. We're now living in quite a different environment. We are now in the midst of in a nationwide wave of anger and violence directed at school board meetings. We now have state legislatures, including North Carolina, who are taking up bills to ban what can be taught about our history. These bills, like the one in North Carolina, encourage teaching about racial injustice like slavery and the Black codes in, quote, an impartial manner. The word impartial meaning neutral, disinterested, and detached. Neutral, disinterested, and detached. This is the very opposite of naming our abiding connection. This is hiding or denying that connection. Just like the pre-emancipation census counts, it is denying the humanity of my family and millions of families across our country. Members of this movement feel that they're simply protecting their children and others from shame or guilt. And of course, we want to do that. But when we publicly recognize pain of others, when we collectively share in the acknowledgement of those who made us, like we're doing today on All Saints' Day, I don't believe it leads to shame or guilt. I believe it leads to acceptance, to healing, and to love. After all, what is family but people who love and remember together? Collectively, when we let fear of shame or guilt cut us off from our past, we are denying who we are and cutting ourselves off from our very strength. I have beside me on my desk, here's a little picture of it, a picture of my mom holding me at my first birthday party. One of the things you'll notice about the picture, besides the fact that I'm wearing powdered blue baby bell bottoms, is the fact that my mom is quite young in that picture. In fact, she had just turned 20 years old a few weeks prior to my first birthday. She had me when she was in college, and she never married my father. She was trying her best to stay in school and raise me. But my grandfather drove a cab for a living. My grandmother cleaned houses for a living, and it was tough. My mom needed help. And so she applied for and received government assistance, welfare. This was at a time when, of course, it was just becoming fashionable to demonize women like my mother for receiving government assistance and questioning the value of their children. My mom's caseworker even went so far as to tell her that she would be better off to just drop out of school altogether. I look at this picture sitting here on my desk and I think about my mom in that moment. And I wonder what kind of pressure she must have felt. I remember the pressure I thought I was under as a college student. I remember the pressure I felt as a young parent of young children. But I can't imagine what it felt like to do both of those things at the same time by yourself. Fortunately for me, my mom rejected the caseworker's advice. She stayed in school. She finished, she graduated with honors, and she would later go on to get 2 master's degrees and spend her entire career as a teacher helping others get their education. My mom's decision to reject her caseworker's advice and remain in school changed my life, changed the trajectory of our entire family, changed my little sister's lives, who went on to become a doctor and a therapist. It changed the lives of many others whom my sisters and my mom have had the privilege to touch along the way. I've always been very grateful and proud of my mom for that sacrifice. But until recently, I never felt comfortable sharing this story. I was limited by the fear of shame and guilt. I was fearful of the stigma surrounding public assistance in teenage pregnancy. But I've learned that by denying that part of my story, I was denying a major piece of who I was. I was denying the very sacrifice and strength of my mother and everything she endured for me. When we name our abiding connection to those who made us, we let go of this fear. We walk together in gratitude of the sacrifices that they made for us. Most importantly, we remember that it's not even about us. Just like my mom who held me in her arms all those years ago, there are children and future generations who are counting on us to get this moment right. So together, let's name our abiding connection to all of those who made us. Let's join as a family in celebrating our shared humanity. Our children are counting on us. Future generations are counting on us. Thank you. God bless you.
Perfect words for today. I mean, I don't think they could have been any more perfect for what we needed to hear today. Thank you so very much, Brandon, for sharing part of your personal story with us. And we will go now to our benediction and closing, which is the 23rd Psalm. Bobby McFerrin wrote this song in memory of his mother when she passed away. Go in peace.